The moment I saw that $90,000 loan on my credit report, I knew exactly who did it. And when I called my sister and she laughed, actually laughed, and said my credit's bad, so I borrowed yours, something inside me went completely still. Not angry. Not panicked. Just clear. Crystal clear about what came next. My name is Kate Fletcher, and this is the story of how my perfect family finally learned that silence has limits. Let me take you back 2 weeks before everything exploded. Before the federal investigators. Before my parents stopped speaking to me. Before my sister's world came crashing down in her expensive condo that she should never have been able to afford. 2 weeks earlier, we were having Sunday brunch at my parents' house in Arlington. The kind of brunch that looks perfect from the outside. My mom, Patricia, had made cinnamon rolls from scratch. The table was set with their best dishes. Sunlight was streaming through the bay window, hitting all those family photos on the mantel, mostly of my sister Celeste at every milestone you can imagine. Celeste showed up late, of course. She always does. Wearing this designer coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent, talking about her latest investment ventures and her weekends away with people I'd never heard of. My parents ate it up. They always do. Leaning forward, asking questions, practically glowing with pride. Then Celeste turned to me, tilted her head with this little smile and asked if I was still doing that little finance job. I laughed. I always laugh when people underestimate what I actually do. I work for a federal agency, I can't name which one, but let's just say I spend my days tracking financial crimes, following money trails, spotting patterns that other people miss, finding the truth buried under layers of polished lies. So yeah, that little finance job meant I could read a balance sheet like most people read a text message. And sitting there at that brunch table, watching Celeste talk about her new place in the city, her shopping trips, her lifestyle, something wasn't adding up. The numbers didn't work. She didn't make that kind of money. I knew because I'd helped her with her taxes 2 years ago, back when we were still close. Back when she'd called me crying at midnight because she couldn't afford her rent. Back when I'd lent her $3,000 that she promised to pay back in 6 months. That was 4 years ago. I never saw a cent of it. But that's how it always went with Celeste. She'd take and take, then act like I was being petty for remembering. Like keeping score made me the bad guy. Sitting at that table, watching her show off, I remembered something else too. When I was 23, I'd been saving for months to take a certification course that would advance my career. I had the money in my savings account, $2,200. Then one day, I checked my balance and it was gone. Completely wiped out. Celeste had my debit card information from when she'd borrowed it for an emergency months earlier. She'd spent it all on a girls' trip to Miami. When I confronted her, she cried. Said she'd been so stressed, she needed a break, she'd pay me back. My parents took her side. Told me I was being selfish. That family helps family. That I'd have other opportunities. I never took that course. The next session was 6 months later, and by then the price had gone up and I'd moved to a more expensive apartment. I missed my window. But here's the thing about family. Your brain and your heart don't always speak the same language. So I pushed down that instinct. Told myself I was being paranoid. Being the jealous little sister. I drove back to my apartment in Alexandria that afternoon with this weird feeling in my gut. My place is small, but it's mine. Quiet. Minimal. Everything in its place. The kind of space where I don't have to compete with anyone for air. I made tea, sat by the window, and tried to shake off the unease. Told myself I was imagining things. I wasn't. The alert hit my phone the following Wednesday afternoon. I was at my desk, reviewing a case about suspicious payment transfers, when my phone buzzed. Credit inquiry notification. Most people would panic. I didn't. Something inside me just went still, like pieces clicking into place. I excused myself to one of the quiet rooms we use for sensitive work. The moment the door closed, I pulled up my full credit report. And there it was. A personal loan. Roughly $90,000. Sitting under my name like it belonged there. My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. If anything, I felt calmer. Because this wasn't confusion anymore. This was confirmation. All those things I'd noticed at brunch, the coat, the apartment, the spending, had been pointing me here. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I sat there for a full minute, staring at the screen. Then I did what I always do when something doesn't make sense. I dug deeper. The loan had been opened 3 months ago. 3 months of payments already made under my name. 3 months of my credit being used while I had no idea. I pulled up the application documents. They were all there in the system. My name. My social security number. My employment information, except the salary was inflated. Way inflated. Almost double what I actually make. The signature at the bottom was supposed to be mine. It wasn't even close. Whoever forged it didn't even try to match my handwriting. They just scribbled something that vaguely resembled a C and AF and called it good. That's what got me. Not just that she did it, but that she was so confident I'd never fight back that she didn't even bother to make it convincing. I called Celeste. She answered on the second ring, her voice all sweet and polished. "What's up, Kate?" I kept my tone light. "Hey, I got a credit alert. Did you use my information for something by mistake?" There was a beat of silence. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. Casual, like I'd asked about the weather. "My credit's bad, so I borrowed yours," she said. "Relax. It's not a big deal." I closed my eyes. "Celeste, that's identity theft." She scoffed. "Oh my God, don't be dramatic." I didn't say anything. Sometimes silence is more powerful than shouting. Then I heard footsteps. Another voice. My father's voice. "What's going on?" he asked. "She's freaking out over a loan," Celeste said breezily. "I used her name. Her score is better." My father didn't gasp. Didn't correct her. Didn't even pause. "It's not a crime if you're family," he said. Like he was reminding me of basic table manners. I had to pull the phone away from my ear for a second. Not because it hurt. Because it confirmed every fear I'd been swallowing for years. In their world, Celeste's convenience outweighed my security. Her wants outweighed my boundaries. Her mistakes were something I was expected to absorb. "Dad," I said quietly, "this is serious." He sighed. Annoyed. "Don't start. You know your sister always lands on her feet. Help her out. Help her out. My sister steals my identity. My father excuses it. And I'm expected to carry the consequences." I ended the call without another word. Back at my desk, I pulled up the loan documents again. The income listed was inflated, nearly double what Celeste actually made. The signature wasn't mine. Too looping. Too careless. Whoever forged it assumed I'd never fight back. They were wrong. Because in that moment, something shifted inside me. Not rage. Not panic. Clarity. And clarity has teeth. I spent the rest of that day doing what I do best. Following the facts. Building a case. I pulled my full credit file. The loan had already been dispersed. Payments had started, bare minimum, right on time. Just enough to avoid red flags. Whoever handled this knew exactly how far they could push. My name. My credit history. My financial stability. All wrapped into a debt I never asked for. And here's what really scared me. In my field, even a hint of financial inconsistency can end your career. You don't get to explain. You don't get grace. You just lose everything you built. I thought about the background check I'd gone through to get this job. The financial review. The questions about debt and spending habits. I thought about the promotions I'd worked toward, the clearance levels I'd earned, the trust I'd built over 5 years of proving myself. Celeste had put all of it at risk. With a smirk. And the worst part? She didn't even think she'd done anything wrong. To her, this was just another time little sister would clean up her mess. Another time I'd swallow my anger and move on because that's what I always did. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Your sister is upset. Don't make this bigger than it is. A second one from my father. Sort it out quietly. Family doesn't need drama. Drama. That's what they called it. Not fraud. Not betrayal. Just an inconvenience they wanted swept under the rug. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a secure folder on my computer and created a new file. Not out of anger. Out of procedure. This is what I do every day at work. Document. Timestamp. Preserve evidence exactly as it appears. I saved the forged signature, the inflated income numbers, the payment timeline. I captured every notification, every discrepancy. I even pulled Celeste's social media posts where she bragged about her new place in the city, the place she shouldn't have been able to afford. One post in particular stood out. From 2 months ago, her standing in front of a luxury condo building, caption reading, "Finally living the life I deserve." 43 likes. Comments from friends congratulating her. Living the life she deserves. Using my name. My credit. My future. I wasn't lashing out. I was following the same process I'd follow for any other case. Building a chain of evidence that couldn't be broken. Hours passed. The office emptied around me. Lights dimmed one by one until it was just me, my screen, and the glow of undeniable truth staring back at me. I scrolled through the folder one more time. Row after row of clean, documented evidence. There was no satisfaction yet. Just a quiet steadiness. A direction. I clicked upload. The file transferred in seconds. A small progress bar carrying the weight of everything that would come next. When it finished, I closed my laptop gently. Almost reverently. They wanted me to let it go. Instead, I lit the fuse. The notification hit my phone at 7:14 the next morning. I was making coffee in my quiet apartment when the screen lit up. Action initiated. Field team deployed. Simple words. No drama. But I could picture it all. The dark jackets. The purposeful steps. The heavy knock on Celeste's door that carried authority instead of anger. At 7:19, another notification. Entry executed. I exhaled slowly. Not relief. Not triumph. Something deeper. The kind of breath you release when the truth finally has somewhere to land. I sat down at my kitchen table with my coffee and just breathed. For the first time in days, my chest didn't feel tight. My jaw wasn't clenched. I wasn't bracing for the next phone call or the next excuse or the next time someone would tell me I was overreacting. Later, I would learn the details. How Celeste answered the door in her silk robe, irritated, thinking it was a package delivery. How her expression changed when she saw the badges. How her confidence peeled away like paint under heat. How the hallways of her condo echoed with drawers being opened, files collected, devices secured. None of it surprised me. Entitlement doesn't crumble quietly. By noon, the news reached my parents. I knew before they called. I could feel their anger through the walls of my apartment, like disappointment had a frequency only blood relatives could hear. When my father's name lit up my screen, I didn't answer. Let him sit with it. Let him feel what silence tastes like when it's not on my shoulders. Instead, I showered, got dressed, and drove to their house hours later. I wasn't summoned. But I knew there would be a reckoning, and I wanted to stand in my own skin when it happened. The Fletcher living room is usually warm. Lemon polish, soft lamps, framed photos of Celeste at every milestone. That day, it felt smaller, tighter, the air thick enough to cut. My father stood by the mantel, arms crossed, jaw locked. My mother sat rigid on the couch, twisting a tissue until it nearly tore. They didn't greet me, didn't offer a seat. What did you do? My father demanded. His voice wasn't loud, but it shook with fear. Not fear for me, fear for the perfect image of his golden child. I protected myself, I said, hanging my coat over a chair. She's your sister, he spat. And she stole my identity, I replied calmly. She opened a loan in my name, forged my signature, put my entire career at risk. My mother stood, voice trembling. But did it have to be this? Agents at her home? Neighbors watching? She pressed a hand to her chest. You ruined her life. I met her eyes. She used my credit because hers was destroyed. She bought things she couldn't afford. She lied to you. She lied to me. And you want to talk about embarrassment? My father stepped forward, face flushed. You could have come to us. We could have handled it within the family. I almost laughed. Handled it? Like the way you handled her telling me to stop being dramatic? Or how you said it's not a crime if you're family. His mouth opened and closed. The words had finally revealed themselves as foolish. She didn't mean harm, he murmured. That doesn't erase the harm she caused, I said. Do you have any idea what this could have done to me? I work in a field where financial integrity is everything. One red flag on my credit, one sign of instability, and I'm done. Finished. Everything I've built for the last 5 years, gone. My mother shook her head. But surely they would have understood. No, I cut her off. They wouldn't. That's not how it works. There are thousands of people who want my job. People without complications. Without fraud on their records. It doesn't matter that I didn't do it. It matters that it happened under my name. The room went quiet. I don't think they'd ever considered that part. They'd been so focused on Celeste's feelings, they never stopped to think about what she'd actually done to me. My mother's eyes filled with tears. She's terrified, Kate. She should be, I answered softly. The room went silent. Not angry silence. Truth silence. The kind neither of them knew how to hold. Where is she now? I asked. Being interviewed, my father said, bitterness heavy in every word. Good, I replied. My mother's voice broke. How can you say that? Because accountability is the only thing that will stop her from doing this again. She didn't steal because she needed it. She stole because she believed she could. Because you taught her there would always be someone else to pay the price. I paused. This time, it wasn't going to be me. My father looked away. For the first time in my life, he had no defense. I walked past them toward the hallway lined with family photos. Celeste in her prom dress. Celeste at graduation. Celeste holding her first apartment key. Not one photo of me on my own. Always beside her. Always slightly out of frame. I stopped at one particular photo. Me and Celeste at her college graduation. She's front and center, holding her diploma, beaming. I'm behind her, blurred, barely visible. I remembered that day. I'd driven 6 hours to be there. Brought her flowers. Taken her to dinner after. She'd spent the whole meal talking about her plans, her dreams, her future. She never asked about mine. When I turned back, my parents looked smaller somehow. Like the edges of their certainty had crumbled. You both asked me to stay quiet, I said. But silence isn't love. Silence is permission. And I won't give it anymore. I left them standing there, surrounded by the remnants of a story they'd written without me. Outside, the afternoon light was bright. Almost too bright. The air was crisp with the kind of clarity that follows a storm. As I drove toward the federal building for my meeting with the investigative team, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Interview completed. Evidence consistent. Short. Neutral. Final. A few hours later, another message arrived. An update about the asset review underway at Celeste's condo. It didn't detail what was seized, just that items and records tied to the fraudulent loan were now secured for review. I didn't need specifics. I'd spent years analyzing cases like this. I knew exactly how it unfolded. Methodical. Meticulous. Unyielding. Justice isn't loud. It's consistent. And for the first time, I felt something close to steady relief. Not because Celeste was facing consequences. Because I had finally stepped out of the role they'd kept me in all my life. The quiet one. The accommodating one. The one who absorbs. Not anymore. The next chapter wouldn't belong to them. It would belong to me. The days that followed settled into a strange, heavy quiet. Not the suffocating silence I grew up with. This one felt cleaner. Like the air after a storm when everything sharp has already been stripped away. The official update arrived midweek. The fraudulent loan was fully traced. The documentation was airtight. The responsibility was placed exactly where it belonged. Celeste wasn't dragged through headlines or public humiliation. The process moved the way it should. Measured. Private. Firm. Enough to stop the damage. Enough to protect me. My parents didn't call. Or maybe they did, and I let the phone ring until it stopped. I wasn't avoiding them out of anger. I just needed space to breathe without their expectations settling on my shoulders. A few days later, an envelope slid under my apartment door. Delivered by courier. Inside were revised trust papers from the family attorney. My parents had adjusted everything. Restructured responsibilities and financial management to prevent future abuse. For the first time, they acknowledged in writing what they couldn't say aloud. The system they built around Celeste had consequences. At work, my supervisor stopped by my desk. Tapped a folder against his hand. They were forming a new team, he said. Focused on emerging financial abuse cases. He wanted me on it. Someone who understood not just the patterns, but the human cost behind them. I didn't give him an answer right away. I just sat there, letting the weight of the offer settle. For once, my life wasn't something happening to me. It was something I was choosing. A week later, I got a text from Celeste. The first one since everything happened. Can we talk? I stared at those 3 words for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it. Pretend I never saw it. But that would be going back to who I used to be. I replied. When you're ready to take real responsibility, not just say sorry to make it go away. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I understand. That was it. No excuses. No deflection. Just 2 words that felt more honest than anything she'd said to me in years. 2 weeks later, she sent another text. Can I call you? I said yes. When her name lit up my screen, I almost didn't answer. But I did. Hey, she said. Her voice was different. Smaller. No polish, no performance. Hey, I replied. There was a long pause. Then she said, I'm sorry. For what specifically? I asked. I wasn't trying to be harsh. I needed to know if she actually understood what she'd done. Another pause. Then she said, for stealing your identity, for putting your job at risk, for thinking I could just take what I wanted because you'd always forgive me, for never considering what it cost you. I closed my eyes. Those were the words I'd needed to hear. I'm getting help, she continued. A therapist. And I'm in a financial management program. I have to meet with someone every week to go over my spending, my budget, everything. That's good, I said. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. I just wanted you to know that I finally get it. What I did to you. What I've been doing to you for years. We talked for 20 minutes. It wasn't easy. There were long silences. Awkward moments. But it was real. More real than any conversation we had in a decade. When we hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. And maybe a little bit hopeful. I don't know if Celeste and I will ever be close again. I don't know if my parents will ever really understand what they put me through. But I'm done waiting for them to change before I can move forward. Because here's what I learned through all of this. Family shouldn't be a shield for harm. And silence shouldn't be the price of belonging. For 28 years, I played the role they gave me. The steady one. The quiet one. The one who never makes waves. But still water runs deep. And when you finally let it move, it doesn't just trickle. It surges. In the end, what happened to my sister wasn't about revenge. It was about finally stepping out of a role I never chose and protecting the life I built on my own terms. Some people will call me cold. Some will say I went too far. That family deserves more chances, more grace, more understanding. But those people weren't the ones who had their identity stolen. Their career threatened. Their trust shattered by the people who were supposed to protect them most. I drew a line. And for the first time in my life, I didn't apologize for it. My supervisor called me into his office last week. He told me they'd approved the new position, the one focused on financial abuse cases. He asked if I'd made a decision. I said yes. Because I understand now what these cases really mean. Behind every fraud report, every stolen identity, every forged signature, there's a person whose trust was broken. Often by someone they loved. And maybe I can help them find their voice the way I finally found mine. So, did I go too far, or finally far enough? If you like this story, give it a thumbs up so others who need to hear it can find it too. Drop a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself when no one else will. Because sometimes the hardest choices lead us to exactly who we were meant to become.